Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So if you're new here, hello, my name is Julianne and I have been living in Germany for 2 years now. I was born and raised in Canada, and since moving to Germany, there are quite a few things that I have unconsciously picked up, because when I moved here I was coming to a new culture and they have a different way of viewing things, and I really picked up a different perspective. And so that's what I'm going to share today. I'm going to share 10 things that I have unconsciously picked up since being in Germany, and now these are habits that I live by. So number one is composting. And composting is pretty important in Germany, and it's also pretty old. So I know for my family living in Canada, they've only been composting for maybe 5 years, and that's only in a town. My sister, she lives in a city in Canada, and they don't have any public citywide composting or any curbside pickup, And for me now, I cannot imagine not composting. It seems so ridiculous not to. Because yeah, composting is really amazing for the environment. When you're composting all of your food scraps and really any organic materials, then you're creating some really good quality soil with that, and it really improves soil quality, as well as it really helps to fight against climate change, because when you send all of your compost to the landfill, then that's when it releases methane, and methane is 23 times more potent than CO2. And this happens in landfills because it gets buried and then there's no oxygen to help break them down, and then that's when they release the methane. So it's very important to compost, and that is something that, in Canada I never worried about so much, and now in Germany it's second nature. I will never not compost. The second thing that I really picked up since being in Germany is sorting out the recycling. And I know Germany is kind of known for having a super complex recycling system, and sometimes it is. I think that some of the bins are kind of obvious. You have your compost bin, you have your garbage bin, but where it gets complicated is what goes into the garbage and what can be actually recycled. And it also depends where you live. So right now I'm living in a city, so what is picked up by the city is paper, garbage, compost, and we also have yellow bags. And in the yellow bags you would put aluminum cans, milk jugs, and then all of your plastics. But knowing which plastics can actually go in there and which have to go in the garbage can get a little complicated. And then for glass in a city, you would have to take it to these community glass bins, and there you sort them by the color of glass. But I know that lots of villages still have a different type of recycling, and that's where they have a flat and a round bin. And so the flat one, I think that's flexible plastics and paper, and then in the round bin, I think it's glass, metals, and harder plastics. But I haven't lived in a village for a year now, so I can't remember exactly how it is. And then they also have compost and garbage, of course. But really the benefit here is that because it's sorted out so much, there's a way higher chance of it actually getting recycled. The bins that my parents have at their house, they only have a big garbage bin and a big recycling bin. And then in the recycling bin, just everything goes in. And when it's all mixed together, then there's a lower chance of it actually getting recycled. Also in Germany, if you have a bigger trash bin, then you have to pay more money. So it's really good for incentivizing people to get a smaller trash bin because it's less expensive, and then they are producing less waste. And another really great thing that Germany has is a circular system in place for some things. So when you go to Aldi or Edeka, they have a place where you can put in your old bottles and get money from that. If you're buying bottled sparkling water from Edeka, after you're finished, you can take those bottles back to the store, and then you get a little receipt which will give you a discount for your groceries. The third thing that I have learned since being in Germany is to keep all of my documents, no matter how important I think they are, whatever your situation is, whatever they are, keep all of your documents because there's a good chance that you will need them in the future. And this is so important for especially me because I'm not a German and I came to Germany and I am living here with a residency. It is so important to have all of your documents. So that's a habit that I've picked up, but it's also kind of annoying because it takes up so much space. In our flat, we pretty much have a wall just dedicated to important papers. And I can't imagine what it's gonna be like in 20 years or something, just like all the papers that you would collect. So Germany loves certificates and Germany loves paperwork. The fourth habit that I've picked up since being in Germany is to get all of your grocery shopping done on Saturday because everything is closed on Sundays. They take it as a day of rest, and so, you know, if you need some milk on Sunday morning, then you're out of luck and you'll have to run to your neighbor. And I think this isn't too hard to avoid. Usually, you know, even if we're missing something on Sunday, then it's fine until Monday. The worst thing is if you're gone for the week or something, or even just gone for the weekend, you come back on Sunday, your fridge is empty, and then you have no food. But luckily on Sundays, of course, the restaurants are still open, so there have been a few times where we come back on a Sunday and then we need to order some food for us. The fifth habit that I have picked up since living in Germany is to be very financially cautious. Something that I've actually learned since being in Germany is that Germans around the country have different stereotypes for other Germans. And so I live in Baden-Württemberg, so apparently the stereotype for people in southwest Germany is that they have multiple piggy banks, they are very tight with money, and they are always saving. And I have to admit that is 100% true. My husband has so many piggy banks. Let me actually show you how many. Number 1, the floral pig, full of coins. Number 2, the ladybug pig, also has coins in it. Number 3, the purple sparkle pig. Oh, surprisingly this one is empty. And number 4, the legit bank door that you actually need a code to open. I don't even know if he knows the code. So yeah, Germans are pretty careful about their money. And one big no-no in Germany is credit cards. Like, I know in North America it's so common to have a credit card. Like, I got a credit card when I was 18 and that was fine. But in Germany, like, it's not common to have a credit card. And so kind of the habit that I have taken away from this is just to be really careful about my purchases and not make irresponsible purchases, as well as, you know, actually saving a good chunk of our money. My husband and I just recently started investing and he was so happy, so overjoyed when we made €1. To him it was like we made 1,000. The sixth habit that I've picked up since being in Germany is water conservation. And this is something that I don't really know if it's because I came to Germany or if it's just because of the whole crisis that's around the whole world right now. I'm not too sure. But what I do know is that Germans are a lot more aware of the environment and I would say are quite a bit more open to living more environmentally sustainable. Another thing that I've heard that I'm not too certain how it compares to North America is that water can be really expensive in Germany. I have a friend who also grew up in Canada and her family moved to Germany. Apparently they live in the most expensive place in Germany for water. And in Germany, they pay the same in a month what they would pay in Canada for a year. But I don't really know for sure if that's like an exception, if they came from a really cheap place in Canada and then went to a really expensive place in Germany, or what. So what I've experienced is that it's just second nature to use the eco option when you're doing the dishes or the laundry and things like that. Even like collecting rainwater is pretty typical for people to collect rainwater off of their house for their gardens. And another big thing for water conservation is that the Germans I know don't typically water their gardens, especially like their lawns. If it's like super hot, then maybe they'll water their lawns a bit, but for their like annual, just like normal yard, they don't water it. The 7th thing that I really picked up since coming to Germany is similar to the 6th one, and this is energy conservation. In Germany, some people do still have dryers, but it's not so common for people to actually use them, or maybe they'll use them for like a little bit, but then they'll finish drying things like by just hanging them and like drying them outside. That is like so common, and that is the biggest difference that I noticed from coming from Canada into Germany, is that like in Canada, I never hung my clothes to dry, never once. But then coming to Germany, like that's the only option for most people living in flats, even if you don't have an outdoor space. In our first flat in Germany, we didn't have a balcony or anything, but we still hung up our clothes to dry just in the living room. And so looking back, it's kind of funny now because, you know, in Canada, it's a lot more affordable to build like a bigger house than in Germany. So people have these big houses, and you know, even in the wintertime, they don't want to hang up their clothes to dry outside, but they still don't hang the clothes up inside even though they have such a big space to do it. It's just a little funny. And so, you know, that's the difference that I've noticed now since coming to Germany. Another thing that's really common in Germany is solar panels, and there's different types of solar panels. So what I recently learned is that apparently when you see houses with like a full house of solar panels that cost like 20,000 euros or something, those aren't used just for the house. Apparently, I'm not sure totally how it works. Apparently that's kind of linked with like the energy grid for the city or whatever. And so each month you're being reimbursed for the energy that you put into the grid. But another thing that I heard is that you can get these really small solar panels that you just put like on top of your garage or something. And I think those are under 500 euros. And apparently it can run like all the electricity in your house pretty much, except for if you were using it for heating, you would probably need like another one. I know my in-laws were really looking into getting one because, yeah, that's something that is true, is energy is quite a bit expensive, and especially if you have electrical heating, apparently that's so expensive in Germany to have electric heating. So people always have natural gas. But what I really want to do when we have a house is I want to get solar panels and have them just for the energy of the house and then also for the heating. I just think that's such a great idea. The 8th habit that I really picked up in Germany is prioritizing just local, anything local, especially produce. And this means buying directly from farmers, especially like potatoes and eggs, apples in the fall time. Oh, so good from the farmer. And then you get all the different varieties too. Like my husband loves going to the farmer in the fall and getting Alsace apples. I think that's what they're called. I can't remember. I'll put in the name, but those are his favorite types of apples, and you know, you can't really get them at the grocery store. You can only get them from the farmer. And to go with that, also just going to the farmers markets, then all the vendors come together. And even in the supermarkets, one thing I noticed is that Germans will prioritize things that come out of Germany way more than things that come out of like even their neighboring countries. Like asparagus, white asparagus is such a huge thing in Germany, but people only want asparagus from Germany. And so people will see 2 things of asparagus. One of them comes from Germany, the other one comes from like Greece or something. And they'll look at it and they're like, it's from Greece, that's far away. In Canada, that's like if you were living in Vancouver and you were like, that comes from Calgary. Like, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that far away, but people really want to keep it local. The 9th habit that I've really picked up since moving to Germany is that if you want to buy something, you first have to see if it's on eBay Kleinanzeigen. I guess the equivalent of this in Canada would be like a Kijiji. It's just Kijiji, and I don't know if Kijiji is also in America. I think they have Craigslist. I think that's the American version. But it's pretty much just like Facebook Marketplace, you know, people selling their used goods or, you know, sometimes even new things that they've made. So I know lots of people go there searching for really good quality secondhand things. And that is where, for me and my husband, that's where we got so much stuff for our flat. And sometimes you can score some really good things for free. Like we have these 2 armchairs and apparently they're so old, they're like antiques. And we got them for free from this really cute old couple and we just had to wash them up and they were beautiful. Another thing that unfortunately hasn't happened for a while because of the pandemic is flow markets. This is like a flea market, and so all these different people come together and it's just like a massive garage sale. I think that is where you find the best things for the best prices because there's just all this stuff together. You can search for hours, and I find the prices at those events are also the best. So I'm so excited for when I can go to a flea market again. And number 10 habit that I have picked up since being in Germany is if you can walk, then don't drive. So Germany is a very highly populated country, and it's also, I mean, for a Canadian, it's very small. Germany is half the size of Alberta and the population is like insane. I don't know how many tens of millions of people live here. I think there's like 90 million people living in Germany. So, you know, traffic is extremely congested, even on the highways. That's something I could never imagine in Canada. In Canada, if you're driving on the highway, there's nobody else on the highway. In Germany, there's traffic jams on the highway. That's insane for me. And so, yeah, it is kind of a pain to drive somewhere. And, you know, the next question is when you actually get to your destination, parking, it can be really difficult to find parking, and you also have to pay for parking no matter where you go. It's really hard to find a place where you don't have to pay for parking. But fortunately, for just everyday things, it's not really necessary to drive. For me and my husband, we don't really drive at all during the week because, you know, maybe on the weekend we'll drive to go to the grocery store if we're picking up a lot of things, but throughout the week, if we need a few things, we'll just walk to the closest grocery store, and that's not so bad. Things are just a lot closer in Germany. And another reason why driving isn't so great, especially right now, is that diesel and gas are getting very expensive now. So I know that the government raises the prices to encourage people to not drive as much and to transition to electric vehicles, but then of course electric vehicles have a huge other problem because their footprint is so much bigger in the manufacturing stage and you have to drive the car so much to make up for the initial footprint, but that's something else. Just in general, people don't want to drive if they don't need to, and that's something that, yeah, driving is really annoying sometimes. So I hope you guys like this video, and just remember that these are just my opinions and things that I have experienced since living in Germany. And yeah, I'm really excited to see after Germany really opens up again after COVID, to see, you know, what other cultural differences there are and what other habits I might pick up along the way. If you like this video, then be sure to give it a big thumbs up and also make sure to subscribe to my channel for more. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!